Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, I'll show you a step-by-step process of my drawing and also will share few tips to improve your drawings. So let's begin with the paper. Here I'm using a 250 GSM smooth surface Bristol paper. And if you don't know where to find these, I'll provide a link in the description, you can check it out. Now as you can see, I have already drawn the outline using grid method, which is a very easy and commonly used method for drawing outlines accurately. I'll provide link to both the images in the description below, one with grid and the other without grid. You can download as per your preference. Now let's look at the pencils I'll be using. So for shading skin tones, I'll be using 5 pencils, 2H, HB, 2B, 4B and 6B. And for shading eyes and hairs, we'll be using 4B, 6B and 8B. These are Staedtler black pencils and this gives a very dark value compared to graphite pencils. And many of you have asked me why I prefer to draw the hairs first before drawing the eyes or the facial features. There is a simple reason behind it. If I draw the facial features first, I have to rest my hands on top of it and then draw the hair. This will smudge the graphite. That's why I prefer drawing from the top left to the bottom right, which means I start from the top left and end it at the bottom right. Now we will start with drawing the eyes first. I'll be using a 6B pencil to block in the areas which are having darker values. Here I'll be using 3 grades of Staedtler black pencils, a 4B, 6B and 8B. My first tip would be to always work in layers. Here I'm putting my initial layer, which is blocking in the dark values. I'll apply a very light pressure on the pencil to shade. Once the block-in is done, I'll use a 4B pencil to shade the iris. To achieve realism, you should always work in layers. As you can see, for my initial layer, I used a 6B pencil to block in. Now I'm using a 4B pencil to shade in the lighter values, and once it is done, I'll use a 8B pencil to shade the darkest value. So here I'll be working in 3 layers. Since the light is falling on the upper center portion of the iris, I will leave that area unshaded. Now I'll use the 8B pencil to fill in the dark values. The pupil of the eye is the darkest part, where I'll apply some pressure on the pencil to get the desired value. And I'll use the same 8B pencil to draw the eyelashes. Now when it comes to the white of the eye, you should never leave it unshaded. Our eyes is like a sphere, so the shading principle I'm applying here is similar to a sphere. When the light falls at the center of a sphere, the area around it gradually fades from light to dark. Now consider the eye as a sphere. The light is falling at the center, which is the iris. Shade the edges of the eyes darker and gradually reduce the value at the center. I'm doing it with a HB pencil by simply applying more pressure while shading at the edges and reducing the pressure when it reaches the center. Since the upper eyelid has some mass or thickness to it, so the shadow will fall on the upper portion of the eye. So remember to shade the upper portion of the eye darker than the lower portion. Now I'll use a 4B pencil to shade the shadows below the eye. This area below has some light wrinkles which can be achieved by simply drawing lines with more pressure on the pencil and then shading the area around it. Here also I am using only one pencil and working in layers. The area which is darkest is layered 3 to 4 times. If you want to achieve realism in your drawings, then avoid harsh lines. Now for example, there is a crease above the eyelid. If I draw a simple line to show the crease, it will make the image look flat. What you can do is just mark the crease with a very light line and then make it darkest at the center, right where the crease is, and right around it blend it to match with the shade of the skin. This way you can avoid harsh lines. Here I am using a 4B pencil to shade in the initial layer. Since I am shading the eyebrows, I'll draw individual lines close to each other. Then we'll blend it with a soft brush. For the final layer, I'll use a 6B pencil and shade in the areas which are darker in shade. Now I'll shade the forehead in a step-by-step process. So to begin with, I'll divide this in 3 parts: shadows, midtones and highlights. Now for shadows we will be using a 2B and a 4B pencil. For midtones we will be using 2H and a HB. The area which has highlights will remain untouched, we will not shade it. So here are some tips for shading skin tones. When I apply my initial layer of graphite to the paper, I don't actually apply much pressure to the pencil. You try to be very light-handed with the pencil and don't do it in just one layer. You should build the values by working in layers. Also, while shading, you don't want to hold the pencil just at the front. This will put uneven pressure while shading. Just hold your pencil a lot further back, which helps you to have less pressure on the pencil. I hope you will like this video, and I'll try to upload such videos on a regular basis. Soon I'll upload a full time lapse of this drawing. Until then, take care and be safe.